All right, welcome to another episode of Lifting and Yapping. Today I'm doing some hang power cleans with straps, just trying to work on the finish of my pull and the turnover. I'm also going to be doing some bench press later. The main things I'm going to be talking about in this video is just my view of social media, what the role of it is in developing your career as a coach, and then also maybe some of the misconceptions and some KPIs that are actually really important when it comes to growing your audience in a way that's genuinely productive. Because again, we see a lot of people gaining a lot of followers, but it's not really doing anything for their lead generation or for their actual audience or for their ability to spread ideas on a consistent basis. I think this is the thing to understand. Like, I got told when I was a new coach coming into the industry, it's like, just focus on getting results and the business and the reputation will come. And like, to an extent, this is true, but I don't actually think that the fitness industry is a meritocracy. I think that there's a lot of luck involved with how successful you end up being. It's not just luck, but especially if you just focus on results and you're only sort of focusing on what's in your immediate area around you, it just really limits your ability to spread your ideas in this day and age. Meanwhile, you've got all these overconfident, stupid trainers with these huge businesses, huge brands, and huge audiences, all just because they're relentlessly sharing their ideas on social media every single day. So if we can help these smarter, more thoughtful, more self-critical trainers, we need to focus more on empowering them to share content daily. I think a lot of people, especially in leadership spaces in the online fitness community, they're like, just leave it to the experts. If you're just an average Joe trainer, you shouldn't be sharing your ideas on training constantly. But these overconfident idiots, they're not going to stop posting. So the only way to combat it is to empower better trainers to make more content, in my opinion. I think one of the other things that's like the biggest barrier for a lot of coaches wanting to build an audience online is just the rate of production that you have to keep up with to use social media successfully, in my opinion. Like, I think you need to be posting at least 4 or 5 times a week, ideally every single day. That's the most effective way to stay relevant on social media. But then when a lot of people hear that, it sounds like an absolute nightmare. But that is because you're not good at making content. You're not efficient. And you're not that highly skilled at it. So to make a decently useful piece of content, it causes you way too much stress, and that's why you find it unsustainable. Reality is, once you put the effort in and you develop the systems and the frameworks, you should be able to knock out an Instagram post in like 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe if you're really stuck for ideas, it's like 20 to 30 minutes or something like that. But it shouldn't be that hard to come up with a piece of information that's enjoyable to make and actually valuable and going to impact people's training or nutrition or whatever it is in a positive way if you just put the effort into sharing it. So if the idea of posting and creating content every single day makes you cringe, I'd encourage you to reflect on how good your systems and your frameworks are for developing your ideas and sharing your ideas on social media, because that's probably where you need to put the attention and put the effort into so you can make content more effortlessly, because at the end of the day, it's no different to strength training. It's through removing the friction towards participating in the activity that ultimately leads to the best results. If you can find a way to come up with a framework that allows you to post consistently, not even for a year every single day, but like even just for a period of 60 to 90 days, that is going to upskill you as a content creator so much. But again, people sort of have this like binge restrict attitude with social media. They put way too much effort into their first couple of posts. It sucks the absolute life out of them. Obviously, we need to be playing the long game on social media. You're not going to develop an audience or a business overnight. So you can see why people, when they put in too much effort early on, it's too painful of an experience. They fall off the wagon and they just perpetually end up spinning their wheels and falling off the wagon with content creation. You just need to bite the bullet, accept that you're in it for the long run, and just share every single day. Like, initially, the goal is just to post daily and to develop the skills of sharing your ideas, develop your communication skills, develop your writing skills, develop your production skills, develop your video editing skills. There's so many micro skill sets that go into good content creation, and you just need to be compassionate with yourself and give yourself the time to develop these things, especially if you've never really taken a creative pursuit seriously in your life. At the end of the day, what you're doing here is you're becoming an artist. Or there's those aspects to it, which I think make a lot of trainers uncomfortable. If you are someone who's worried about putting yourself out there and how that might be perceived by other people, like one of the ways I made myself comfortable with it is I'm not showing up for myself to like build a business. That wasn't my primary goal. My primary intention for posting every single day is I am just going to try to improve people's workouts by sharing information every single day. That's my goal. If I can convince someone to stop scrolling and just stop on my post for 10 seconds or maybe even 30 seconds, how much value can I communicate to them in that period of time that's actually going to improve their ability to train hard? And coming from that place, like, yeah, all of a sudden I just sort of felt this duty to just show up, share my ideas on training, because no matter how much I had sort of normalized all that information in my head, it was really validating to see that it was actually useful for other people. And then that did confirm my biases, and then that sort of just led into me, I don't know, getting something out of the process, getting a dopamine hit from it, and just wanting to lean back into it even harder. And so that's what you're trying to do. This is a simple framework for just your daily sharing. You're just going to think about a valuable piece of information that could make someone have a better workout tomorrow. And if you can come up with a couple of those, 4 or 5 times a week, then you're absolutely cooking, and everything will sort of flow on from that. And you get better and better at communicating more valuable information in a shorter space of time. I think, again, one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to sharing more nuanced ideas is that there's no place for them on social media or any sort of short form content platform, because people just don't have the attention spans. When we're thinking about attention spans on social media, what we're really playing with there is just our ability to stop people scrolling. Once you've developed your hooks, these are these like 3 to 5 second opening lines that are designed to grab someone's attention just to the point where they're going to stop scrolling and actually consume the whole post. Because that's the issue. It's like so many people think that they can't share nuanced ideas on social media because they absolutely suck at creating a hook and convincing someone to stop scrolling for 3 to 5 seconds so they can work out where the rest of the post is going. So again, it doesn't matter what kind of crazy, complex or nuanced ideas you want to get into. You can do all that once you've just nailed this hook development process. So get really good at convincing people that it's worth their time to stop scrolling and consume the whole post. And that's the real challenge, like coming up with one line or one sentence that communicates that and actually successfully stops them from scrolling to that post below. Once someone is actually hooked in, then you legitimately have, like, I would say on average 40 to 60 seconds for them to consume the post and decide whether it's worth it to stop scrolling for you tomorrow when you post something. Because that's what sort of builds up over time. People will develop a trust in you that it's worth stopping scrolling when they see your content. And if you can keep delivering on that, it's just the relationship will make a lot of sense in the back of their brain. They're like, oh, seen another post from Angus. Whenever I stop scrolling for 10 seconds and read his post, my training gets better. All right, so after this set, I'll talk a little bit more about what this relationship building process looks like in the long term and just some other KPIs that you should be looking out for to see that all your effort is producing the right results for your social media. All right, time to move on to bench press, I guess. So when it comes to metrics to tell that these social media accounts are doing well and that your audience is actually growing, your follow account, it just doesn't mean shit. I mean, people always look at follow account as a proxy to assume, how big your audience is, how many people are seeing this person's content on a regular basis. But at the end of the day, what dictates that is not the size of your followers, but the amount of regular engagement that you're getting. So every now and then the algorithm will change slightly to show a bias towards one of the engagement metrics more so than the others. There was a period where it was saves, there was a period recently where it was comments, but then since everyone's been doing the chatbot replies and things like that, now they've taken the focus off comments as a form of engagement. Like I said, it's like likes, comments, saves, they all still do work, and you shouldn't be, I don't think it's wise to tailor your content creation strategy towards chasing any one particular type of engagement, because over the course of a year or a couple of years, Instagram or whatever social media platform you're using is going to keep biasing one of those, because people are always trying to game the system, and then that's why they're always sort of adjusting the algorithm, adjusting the meta, so people can't game it by either using the chatbot responses or, like I said, they've got multiple reasons for doing that, or just always telling people to save the post. Or now, because you see that the head of Instagram, he's sort of talking about how they view the app. It started started out as a photo sharing app, then it sort of moved post TikTok into a platform that was mostly about vertical videos and things like that. How they view Instagram is it's primarily a messaging app. So the engagement metric that is most favored right now is the amount of sends to a friend, because again, that's the primary method, how the average person uses Instagram these days. So if you're making content that is getting shared by a lot of people, your content will do really well and you will get a lot of extra reach on your posts. Having said that, getting a lot of likes, getting a lot of comments, getting a lot of saves, all of those things will still push your post really hard in the algorithm or in the feed. But yeah, your goal with your content, all you are trying to do is get slow increases in your engagement over time. So just not looking to go viral. I actually think that can be a bit of a threat to the system, but just slow and steady increases in engagement and audience over time. Because again, your audience at the end of the day is just reflective of your engagement. If your engagement goes up, your audience goes up. If your engagement goes down, your audience goes down. It's as simple as that. So other than engagement driving the size of your audience, the other reason why engagement is really important is because people just don't discover your account on social media and then become a customer. Again, a big part of what we're trying to grow our audience at the end of the day is, yeah, we want to help people with free information, but then there's this other aspect where we're hoping to use it to grow our business as well. And in my experience, it typically takes people on average, like don't get me wrong, there are those people who will discover you, have this epiphany when they see your content and instantly want to make a purchase, but that's not the average person's journey. That's not the average person's relationship with your content. Typically what happens is people discover you exist, and then as they continue to have valuable experiences with your content day in, day out, after 6 to 9 months, then they might make a purchase. And for a lot of people where all they're selling online is one-to-one online coaching, it can take even longer to build people up to that point. Like if all you're offering is one-to-one online coaching, in my opinion, that really is the definition of selling to the 1% over the 99%. Especially if you are someone with quite an audience, what you find is you might really struggle with lead gen for one-to-one coaching because you've gone from people not knowing who you are to then quite a few people actually putting you on a pedestal, and it can be quite intimidating for the average person to fill in an inquiry form to work directly with someone that they really, really look up to. Like they might be worried that they're not good enough or that you might judge them for not knowing things. And all these things could be completely fabricated in that person's head, but you can see how the relationship that they have with your content could lead to these things. So again, our whole goal of making the content is to make people aware that we exist, but then also to continue giving them valuable experiences for stopping scrolling. So at a certain point in time, they have this realization, and a lot of it won't be consciously, it's more sort of subconsciously. They're like, oh my God, if I just stop scrolling and give this person 10 to 30 seconds of attention, my workouts get better. I wonder what happens if, I exchange an email for a free program, sacrificing some personal information, or if I buy a $5 to $10 to $20 program, what sort of results could I get with that if their free shit's that good? And then again, you're just continuing this relationship over time. It starts out trading attention for valuable training information, then it might be sacrificing personal information or a small sum of money to get an even better result. And then again, they just continue wanting to further this relationship because every time they give you a little bit more, they get a great return on their investment. So that's all we're aiming to do, is just continue that value exchange where it's always working out in their benefit. And then eventually, once someone's loved the content, that's made their training improve. Maybe they've tried one of your free programs. Maybe they've listened to some of your long form content where they can get to know you a little bit better. Then all of a sudden, someone's much more likely to fill in an inquiry form for your one-to-one coaching. But again, you've got to think about the customer journey, and even if your goal isn't to sell a whole bunch of cheaper programs, if you're like, well, how many of these cheap programs or free programs am I really going to distribute at the end of the day? Is that going to be meaningful income in and of itself? And it's not really. It's just where it fits into your entire business ecosystem. And that cheap program might lead to you getting a lot of monthly or weekly recurring revenue from the one-to-one clients that actually allows you to generate. Because again, you've got a better process for warming people up and converting people. Again, rather than expecting someone to go from liking your content to filling in that inquiry form, because that's literally like expecting to step into the club, make eye contact with a girl or a guy, and then them just coming up to you and be like, let's go home together. Again, how it usually plays out, they become aware of you, and then you will say things to each other, you'll develop trust, you will build some sort of a relationship over a period of time, and then you will go home together. Again, you got to think of picking up customers and growing your audience. It's a similar sort of process. I forgot that I was meant to give you some tips on how you can get consistent with sharing your content. Like, obviously I already gave the tip of just try and think of like one really useful piece of advice that you could share with everyone on a daily basis, but you kind of have to just brute force your way through the first 2 or 3 weeks of content creation. But I think, you know, where that initial content should come from is just what are the things that you're always ranting to your mates about? What do you rant to your spouse or your partner about when you come home from work? What are the questions or the problems that you're solving for your clients most regularly? Like, this is where a lot of your early content should come about if you're not immediately gravitating towards talking or chatting shit about anything in particular. But then once you've been creating consistently for a couple of weeks, then you have this amazing data set to sort of reflect through. And then when you look through the content that you've made over the last couple of weeks, you should be able to identify somewhere between 3, 4, or 5 content pillars. And these aren't the specific subjects that you're talking about, like, oh, did a post on squats, or like that can be one of your content pillars if you're incredibly passionate about talking about squatting. But again, you should notice that there's probably themes that will arise again and again and again. And this is how you start building out your content framework. You're like, okay, a lot of the time I'll just be talking about misconceptions about the organization of training or periodization. That is one of my content pillars. Another one of my content pillars might be exercise tutorials or form advice and things like that. And like I said, all of these things will either be intuitive to you or you will discover them by engaging in the process. So there is this initial process that you just need to push through, throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks. But like I said, after 2 to 3 weeks of that, you'll have enough to reflect on where a lot of these pillars should start to emerge. And then whenever you're stuck for a content idea, you just go back to your pillars and be like, okay, these are the sorts of themes that I talk about again and again and again, because that's one of the other misconceptions when it comes to posting every day. A lot of people are like, wait, am I meant to have a completely new topic to discuss every single day? Absolutely not. When you have a look at the most successful content creators, again, they sort of have these 4 or 5 pillars that underpins every single one of their posts. And that at the end of the day is brand building, not talking about random shit just to keep people engaged on a daily basis, which won't even be a good strategy. It is about talking about the same 4 or 5 different things again and again and again, and just talking about it in different ways, saying the same thing using different words or a different presentation, whether it was a carousel or whether it was doing it in a vertical video. Even just that diversification. If you think about one topic and you try to present it as a vertical video or a reel, or you try to present it in carousel form, you are going to say it in different ways, okay? The medium's the message. So even having your 4 or 5 content pillars and then just deciding whether you're going to do a carousel, a single slide post, or a reel, that is going to help with your content production as well and your consistency there. So again, we're trying to post daily. We're trying to have 4 or 5 pillars where 90% of our content comes from. We are going to branch out and explore other ideas, whether it's to experiment or whether it's just you're inspired to talk about a random topic on whatever day it is, but just share something that's going to help people with their training every single day. And just over time, they're going to build a relationship with you. Your audience should grow steadily and slowly over time. And eventually you're going to start converting these people into customers, provided you're not selling to the 1% too much. You just need to think about, is the only thing I'm selling quite inaccessible? Or it's like I said, reality is most of the people who follow you and who discover you online, they won't want you as their one-to-one coach. Like, one-to-one coaching is a viable way to run a business online, but I just think it's important to try to develop some other products so that... Alright, so apparently the info I was giving out was just too good and then my GoPro overheated. So I think that's all I got for today. But if you want me to do another video on this topic, just let me know in the comments section. If you want more advice on e-commerce and content creation, you can check out my guide on it. There should be a link for it down below. If you want to train how I train, you can also get a free week of training. And then there's free plyo programs, gymnastics programs, and accessory bundles down there as well. I'll see you next week.